Kubrick Lover 1972 here. Of course, you also know me as Brian by now. Let me explain what's happening here. This blank space right up here. What I'm going to do, I think, and I think I might start doing it with these videos. That where I've the series where films I've watched before, in the last week or month or so. I have done these videos in the past, and I was doing them in a fairly good clip for a while, and then I sort of gave it up for a while, and I said in I think it was my previous video that Bob Harrison, is it Bob? Yeah, Robert Harrison 2.0 or Bob. He does these weekly videos, and I saw that I don't know when it was when I first saw him do those, like a year ago or a few years ago. So I said to him, I think I said on a comment on one of his videos, I said, maybe I'll try that out. And I did for a little while, and then I just didn't keep it up. I just didn't feel like it, I guess. So, I'm sort of playing catch up in my mind. I should have wrote them down as I was watching them. So I think I've watched 5 movies. In 2 of those movies, I have the one being a DVD, one being a Blu-ray, so I can show you those on camera. But the other 3 films I watched online, and I thought it'd be a little more colorful, if that's the right way to put it, if I went on Google Images and then put an image there, so it adds some more spice to the video, instead of me just seeing a picture of me talking, I don't know. Who knows? That's what I do for my GarageBand videos. I go on Google Images. I download an image into my computer, and then I upload that with the GarageBand song. So let's see what happens. It's going to take a little longer to edit the video because of that fact. But let's see what happens. And obviously, I'm not going to show you the trailer for the films. I do that I've done that on Facebook, shared it with some groups, I would share, if I watched, like the films I watched online, like Child's Play and Autofocus, ZZ Top, Little Old Band from Texas. I didn't. I chose a trailer from YouTube, and then I put it on Facebook. Copy and pasted. So, all right, enough talk. So let's get to the first one. The first one I watched was Dead Reckoning. Borrowed this from the library. Let's see. There you go. With Humphrey Bogart, and it's directed by John Cromwell, and the female lead is a woman named Elizabeth Scott. The film had good dialogue. I don't know if I followed the film entirely what was going on. How it starts out is Bogart is running through these streets. I think he's in Philadelphia. He runs to this church, and he starts telling a story to this guy in the church who's, I guess, half soldier, half priest. I think that's what the guy is. And he's so then it goes to a flashback, and it goes to this guy that they've come back from World War II, and they are on their way back. I think they're on their way to Washington, and they take a train, and then at some point the train stops, and the press wants to take some pictures of them outside the train before they get back on again to go to Washington. And the other guy that Humphrey Bogart's with leaves the train, and then Humphrey Bogart starts going looking for him, and now I'm trying to recall it. I don't know, maybe what I should do is do reviews as I go along, like watch the movie, put a review in, record the review on my computer, and then the next movie, record a review, and then everything's fresh in my mind. But I'll try and do this, wing it as best as I can. I just looked at the DVD for Dead Reckoning on my my Blu-ray player. I just fast forwarded through it just to jog my memory. So anyways, Bogart looks for this guy that he was on the train with in Philadelphia, I think it is. And he's he goes to the morgue, and I think the guy who he was with has been burned to a crisp for something. There's some kind of subterfuge going on. There's some kind of mystery going on. And then he goes to this nightclub, and he meets this woman played by Elizabeth Scott. I think that's the Elizabeth Scott character. She does some singing, which I guess is like maybe that time period was to showcase her talent. Maybe I don't know. Just turn my phone back on so I can get back to the list of movies. Okay, so yeah, so she does a song, which who knows if they had to be in there or not. It was an okay song, but I don't know. I sort of feel like it was something like maybe she was a singer at that time period, so like they had to put that in for marketing purposes, or that to showcase her talents. And then after that, they go upstairs or up the elevator of this building, and they gamble. It's got it's got a lot of nice dialogue to it. So they go gambling, and then the guy who runs the casino or whatever it is, nightclub, they go to his office to extract the money that Bogart won from playing at gambling, and the runner of the nightclub, who's kind of a seedy character, he's drugged his drink, and Bogart is caught on, but he tries to play it cool, and then he decides to drink his drink. There's like a lot of kind of interesting ways of talking that they do. Like I'm just like Bogart says, but before he decides to take the drink, which is obviously has a not poison, but has something to knock him out. He says like, I was thinking of another toast instead, because like the nightclub guy saying, you hesitate taking your drink, and he says, oh no, I was just thinking maybe I have a better toast to make. So there's all these nice, these like clever little lines that are littered throughout the film. So then he wakes up in this room. I think they're trying to frame him for a murder. Yes, he's being framed. Yes. And then, so he, what's next? What happens next? So he wakes up, and he's dodging the authorities, and then at some point towards the end of the film, it reaches up to where it started, and it goes to the present day of the story. The flashback ends, and then I won't say how it resolves itself. I'm going to give it how many 3.5 stars. So it's a little bit above good. It's got some good lines, some interesting acting. I'm going to say something is probably what it was like at the time, but I don't know if it's entirely excusable. the African American characters in this film are like yes yes ma'am, yes sir, that kind of a thing, and um, they're playing things like maids and butlers and um, what's that other a bellhop and I'm trying to think of what their occupations are in the movie. Um, I don't know if it's a maitre d' or what the concierge, but they're, sir, you have a message for you, and I think Bogart was a little progressive towards African American people or black people at that time period compared to other people, like with Casablanca, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I felt the African American characters were a little sort of just very subordinate to the white characters. The female lead in this film, her maid, sort of is looking out for her, and when they tie up the detective and put him in the closet, and they tell her what to do, she says, "Okay, don't worry, I got it, I got it covered for you," something like that. So that sort of glaringly stood out for me about this particular movie. And I know, a lot of those films in that time period. Well, not a lot. I shouldn't say that. Just some of those films had those sort of. I mean, a lot of those black characters at the time were in those roles, and it's kind of, I don't know, insulting in a way. I don't know. It stuck out a little for me. So yeah, 3.5 stars. Let me get to the next film. This is a Blu-ray that I own. David Lynch, The Art Life. I didn't read I don't know if it's a booklet or a pamphlet. It's not really his films, something he wrote here, which is at the end of the film. It talks about his childhood, his teenage years, his college years, his youth, moving out on his own, having his child and his first wife. I think he's been married more than once. But, the first thing I think that stuck out for me in this movie is his, let's see if I got this. I don't know. I think I got it right. Okay, yeah. Oh, and so here's some art of his. This is not. I don't know how he comes up with his memories, like remembering that when he was 2 years old, he was in a mud puddle with this other guy, this other toddler, and he says, "Oh, it was a whole world." And then, like when he was a kid, his whole world was one block down was a grocery store, and the other way down was somebody else's house, and those were whole worlds for him. He has a weird way of talking about things, which I bet people know on YouTube that watch David Lynch and listen to him talk and all that stuff. They know about all that. There's a part in the film where he talks about he sees a woman that's one of his neighbors. She's out on the street naked, and he was like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years old or something, and he felt helpless that he couldn't do anything for her because he was so small. I'm guessing that probably was the inspiration for Blue Velvet. The Isabella Rossellini character on the Kyle MacLachlan lawn scene. That's probably where it came from. I'm just guessing. And there's all these funny things he says. I don't know. They don't make any sense to me. I guess it's part of his glamour, mystique. Like he decides to go to college in Philadelphia, and he says, I took the bus to Philadelphia, and on the bus I was saying, I'm not in Philadelphia yet. I'm not in Philadelphia. And then I crossed a bridge, and I said, damn, I'm in Philadelphia. I'm in Philadelphia. So I don't know. There's there's this thing about him that people like, the way he talks about things. That his first roommate, when he had an apartment, I think he had three roommates, and one of them being him, and then two other, I think the two other guys had the same first name, I believe. One of the guys was one of the musicians of the Jay Giles band, and so they went to a concert of Bob Dylan's, and Bob Dylan is talking about seeing Bob. He's way far back in wherever it was, an auditorium or something, and he's saying, Dylan is this big, his pants are this big, his guitar is this big, and he said, "Oh, I just had to get out of there because it was driving me crazy." And then what's his name? The Jay Giles band. I don't know his name, but he's saying you don't walk out on Dylan when he's in concert. And David Lynch, and this made me laugh. I don't know what. David Lynch has a weird way of talking and saying things. He's saying F Dylan, It's really, that sounds kind of weird, but it's funny the way he talks, the way he talks about things. There's other things like when he was in high school, he was hanging around people that his mother didn't want him hanging around. And she would say things like, "I'm very disappointed in you." When he moved to his second apartment with his, I think it was his girlfriend. Yeah, his girlfriend was there, and he didn't know she was pregnant. And he took his father came over, and they went into the basement, and he was showing him things that he was doing as art or just experimenting with, like dead bodies, not human dead bodies, animal dead bodies, and showing them in like different states of decomposure, and so he's showing his dad all these things, and then they're coming up the stairs, and he looks back and he sees kind of a sign of displeasure on his father's face, and then he says to David Lynch, he says, "Whatever you do, don't have kids," and because he thought he had like a sick mind or something, maybe he thought he had the mind of a serial killer or something. But of course, at that, then shortly afterward, he found out that his wife, Peggy Lynch, was pregnant with their daughter, Jennifer. I think it's his daughter's name is Jennifer. And it goes into a little the start of where he started making Eraserhead and being accepted by AFI, American Film Institute. So, I recommend this film. It basically doesn't focus really on his movie career, barely focuses on it. It talks more about his painting and his life before he became a filmmaker. I recommend this film. I think it's great. 4.5 stars. I mean, it's just out of 5. It's just this weird way of talking. Just the way he talks. Some of it is kind of funny because it doesn't make any sense, in my opinion. But that's his mystique, if you will. So, okay. Next up, we got a film I watched off of Netflix, Child's Play, directed by Tom Holland. I'll put where am I? Right there, Child's Play. Directed by Tom Holland, starring Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif was in, what's that show? Deadwood, I believe. He was in Alien Resurrection. I don't know I think he was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. If you know if he was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, just put it down there. I think he was. I'm pretty sure he's one of the people that stars along with Jack Nicholson. Maybe he plays Billy. Is that the character in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? I haven't watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in a long time, but I have it on DVD, and it's still in the shrink wrap, I believe. But yeah, so at the start of the film, this character played by Brad Dourif is being chased by a cop, and he gets shot, and then he goes into this toy store, and he's about to die, so he uses like a magic spell to put his spirit inside a doll. and this doll gets bought by this mother who gives it to her son, and she has to work another shift at her job. So one of the women who works with her says she'll take care of her kid while she's working that night at the job. So so this woman that's looking after her kid, um, she's killed by the doll. And At first, the cops come right away because she's thrown out through the glass window of the kitchen of the apartment, and the cops come right away, and they automatically assume it's the kid that killed his babysitter. And But then then something happens. Obviously, something happens. Um, the mother finds out that the doll is a killer. And how does she find out? I think the doll tries to kill her, and then she talks to a police officer. I think the same police officer that killed the man who tried to put who was dying and put himself into the doll. He doesn't believe her, and then the doll comes into his car and tries to kill him, and then oh, so, and then so the boy goes to this dangerous section of, I think it's Chicago. The film is set in this dangerous section. I think it's Chicago, and I think the doll has told him to go there because his co-partner in crime is squatting at some tenement building, and I think he's going to try to kill that guy. Yeah, I think he is, and I think they blow up. The doll blows up the building. I think it might be a better idea for me to, after I watch the movie, right away do a review, but it's past. So then they find out that this doll, I can't remember the name of the types of dolls they are, but the doll says to the boy, "Call me Chucky," or his name's Chucky, which isn't the name of the killer, but he goes by that name or something like that. And they find out that he's going to go to this guy that gave him the spell to learn how to put his spirit into another thing. So the doll comes to this like voodoo kind of a guy, and the voodoo guy says, the longer you stay in that doll's body, the more you will become like the doll. So he says, I want to get out of here, out of this doll body. I want to, I think he wants to go into another person maybe. And he basically uses the voodoo doll guy's, like one of the voodoo doll bodies that he has of the guy, and he moves the limbs around. It's like a little action figure, and wrenches the guy's body. Breaks his leg, breaks his arm, and then he tells him what to do, and then I think he kills him anyways because this guy's pretty sadistic. This Brad Dourif character, and and so the boy gets put in a psychiatric children's like criminal juvenile detention hospital kind of a place because they believe he's the cause of all of this. And it has a nice little ending to it. It's got a lot of. I thought I wouldn't like it that much because I don't know if I'm keen on all these slasher kind of things. I don't know if it's really my bag. I like a few of those kinds of things. Like I like the first Nightmare on Elm Street. I like Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Some of the visual material in Dream Warriors is kind of interesting. I haven't watched Friday the 13th in a long time. And I don't think I really loved them that much or liked them that much at all. Um, but I recently bought the Friday the 13th series on DVD just to take a look at it. But I don't know when I'll look at it. I'm not feeling too motivated to watch it, but I watched Child's Play because people were talking about it a lot on YouTube. So I said maybe I should take a look at this and see why people like it so much. So I was kind of surprised that I liked it more than I did. It had a lot of action, a lot of suspense in it, and so I'm going to give it 4 stars because it was kind of captivating. It's kind of filled with action and suspense. Next up, we got another movie called Autofocus, directed by Paul Schrader, whom I've met. He was showing Mishima at the Jacob Burns Film Center in Pleasantville, New York. And he signed my Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, and Last Temptation of Christ DVDs. But anyways, it stars Greg Kinnear and Willem Dafoe. And Greg Kinnear plays the Bob Crane, who was a guy that was on this show called Hogan's Heroes. And he was like, when he started off on Hogan's Heroes, he was a family man. You know, he had 3 kids and a wife. He went to church. But then his wife finds all these nudie magazines in the garage. And then he meets this guy played by Willem Dafoe, who's this very he's like what do you call him? A tech guy. He knows how to install stereos in people's cars. And then he comes across video equipment, which was brand new at the time, and these bulky cameras, because we're talking about like the late 60s. We're talking about mid-late 60s. And also, he asks him to come to a jazz club, which turns out to be, they turned out to have strippers there. And soon enough, Bob Crane is becoming more, what's the word I'm looking for exactly? I think I'm going to pause the video for a second because there's a word I'm thinking of. I can't. Let me just think of the word. He gets into heathenism. He starts having affairs with all these women, and it leads to his divorce from his first wife. And then he gets married to a second wife, who I think he is one of his stars on Hogan's Heroes. If you know who the second wife, if you know she was on Hogan's Heroes, put the response down there. Anyways, so he marries this second woman, and they have a child, and she says, I don't care if you have affairs with other women because you and I come from the same world, and I'm not faithful to my husband as well. But, that ends up not going well either with his marriage start, his second wife. And Willem Dafoe is, I guess he's kind of perverted, and so it's just basically a film about a guy's fall from grace. I thought this film was better than Paul Schrader's American Gigolo, which was I felt American Gigolo was kind of dated, and I thought it got better towards the end of the movie American Gigolo, but this film I think he's got better handle of this same kind of material. The script wasn't written by Paul Schrader. I can't remember who it was written by. But things go from like very nice and wonderful to this very dark. And when it goes to the very dark side, I'm going to give Autofocus 4.5 stars. Really good movie. I highly recommend it. And to round it off, we have another documentary. Oh, by the way, I watched Autofocus off of Criterion Channel. And I think... did it expire last month? I think it expires the end of this month. I'm not sure. Just Google it, I guess, and you can find out. I'm pretty sure it expires at the end of March. I think so. Okay, so last off is a documentary from Netflix, and it's ZZ Top, that little old band from Texas, which was it's one of those. It's just if you like music, ZZ Top. I guess you're gonna like it. Um, it you know, um, it, maybe that's what colors my judgment of it, because I'm going to give it 4 stars, um, because it tells about how they met each other, what the scene was like when they were starting out in the 60s. They've been around for 50 years, and the lineup hasn't changed since I think it was 1970 when they became a trio. And just how they evolved and how they changed their sound over the years, and um, how they how their is it their producer Bill Ham created their mystique and their use of sound, and it's pretty interesting. They put in some cartoons to like show what it looks like when some things are happening during the story, and like one scene, like one part, they go to a blues festival, which was all African American players, and they were only white band to play, and they played at the very end. And I think when they went there, I think it was Nashville, or was it Memphis? No, it was Memphis, I believe. Nobody knew that there were white guys from Texas. They had no idea. And all the 3 guys, when they were kids, they used to listen to the radio stations, I guess, that were stationed in Mexico, that played people like Muddy Waters, and I think it's Howlin' Wolf and B.B. King, and I can't remember all those guys. But I think at that time period, when they were listening to those blues musicians, Texas radio stations themselves didn't play them, because at the time period, that was like, I think these guys were born in the 40s, or were they born in the 50s? Billy Gibbons, who's the guitar player, Dusty Hill, who's the bass player, and Frank Beard, who's the drummer. It's kind of ironic. They took a few years off in the 70s, and Dusty Hill and the bass player, and Billy Gibbons, the guitar player, they got a little lazy, and they decided not to shave. It wasn't on purpose, but then they grew these long beards, and then it became their trademark. And ironically, the drummer is named Frank Beard, and he's had a little beard sometime, but not like down there kind of a beard. So yeah, that was a pretty good documentary. So I'm going to give that 4 stars. So that rounds it off for this week, or I don't know if it's this week, and maybe it's more like a few weeks. Right now, I'm trying to work on a series on the Ring series of the Japanese Ringu horror movies, and then I've seen the first American Ring with Naomi Watts. I wasn't wild about it, but I think I have a double pack of that and Ring 2, which I think Naomi Watts, is she in the sequel? I'm not sure. I don't remember Ring 1, the American version, very well, so I can't remember what happens to Naomi Watts. But I have the Ringu box set from Arrow. There's a lot of material, so you gotta listen to commentaries. I think I'll read the book that comes with it. So probably that's gonna be one of my next videos. So that's gonna take up my time, and I might do another what I've watched recently before that. If some stuff is going to expire from Mubi within the next few days, or a week or weeks, or if I'm missing some Criterion Channel stuff, they'll expire at the end of the month. So we'll play it by ear, see what happens. Anyways, thanks for watching, and see you in the near future. Bye for now.